All right, everyone. Well, this is Timothy Gordon. He is. He went. Did you go to Steubenville, Tim?
No, I didn't go to Steubenville, so
What college did you
I
end up
hear it's
going to?
nice. I did a master's degree at Loyola Marymount. I did was starting a doctoral degree, and I got a licentiate from the Pontifical Gregorian University, and I have a law degree from the University of San Diego.
Awesome.
And I'm in at this point a doctoral program, but I don't want to say where. So I'm studying Thomistic philosophy in a doctoral program right now
Sounds good.
at a mystery university.
Yeah. Tim, he's written two books. One called Catholic Republic, where he makes the argument that America was founded not as a Catholic nation, but off of Catholic principles. I don't have it yet. I might have a copy. Well, I haven't read it yet. I might have a copy upstairs. But then he also has another book just recently called Rules for Retrogrades, in which he gives some rules about how to stay Catholic and stay conservative in a culture that's against both of those principles. So I'm ordering a copy of that. It sounds really good right now, to me at least. So I'll have to read it and
Thank you.
get back to you.
At
It sounds really
least,
good.
thank
Yeah.
you.
And then the most recent thing that he's been involved in is he used to teach at Catholic school, but got fired for opposing the Black Lives Matter organization. So that was outrageous. Like you can't call yourself Catholic after firing someone who opposes a pro-abortion organization. So that was really outrageous, and he got fired for that. But yeah, he does a show called Rules for Retrogrades with his brother Dave Gordon, and they have guests on. It's a lot of fun. He's a fun guy. My favorite picture of him is with a skateboard. I love that. So
They're better
yeah, with that,
pictures than me.
that's about it. Does anyone have any questions since he's on here for 30 minutes?
I have a quick question. It's not like a serious question, but just kind of hey, were you, Mr. Gordon, you were in the Diocese of Fresno, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Fresno.
that's the diocese I'm in. What school did you teach at, if you don't mind? Because I mean, you're already gone. But...
There's only two high schools there. Garces
Memorial,
and then there's San Joaquin Memorial.
Yeah. Okay. And so okay, Fresno. You were in Fresno then, right?
I was in Bakersfield.
You were in Bakersfield. Okay.
Yeah, it's a weird diocese. Where are you at in the diocese?
I'm in Merced, Atwater area, if you know where that's at. Merced's about an hour north of Fresno and about 30 minutes south of Modesto.
Right.
Yeah. Pretty. The diocese is kind of weird, but yeah. I have a quick question though. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, we only have two high schools between the two memorials, Garces and San Joaquin Memorial, who gets great basketball players through it. The other one,
Jalen Green, yeah.
Yeah, you know Jalen Green, yeah. That kid's going to be probably the first overall pick in a year.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
He's super good. I like all of Bakersfield went out to see him play when Garces played them. So, yeah, and we're probably going to end up maybe litigating against Garces. We're in talks now, and we're going to let them. We're going to open up and let them have. We're going to let our hands go. Let them have the heat if they don't settle. So because
there you go.
Obviously really wrong. Yeah, we're going to let them have it. Yeah, and by the way, I have a third book coming out called No Christian Feminism. Should be in a couple. No Christian Feminism. It's going to be kind of the conversation ender on this asinine circular square Christian feminism, which your most idiotic friends are always trying to introduce into conversations. It'll be kind of like what Phaser and Bassett's book was for the death penalty, right? That basically the Catholic Church's favored position on the death penalty is decidedly pro. And so this will be the conversation ender on that one. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. After you write it, you should go back on Trent Horn's show.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun. Trent's a good man. Just has the wrong position on Christian feminism and the death penalty.
I've got a slightly different question. I've been through a decent bit of content about Thomism. I wonder, what's your opinion on the philosophies of Scotus and Occam, just as a whole?
On their metaphysics, they're both wrong. Scotus on one extreme metaphysically and Occam on the other. univocity and equivocity. This is if everyone's not asleep already. Yeah, Scotus and Oxymoron, the opposite ends of where Aquinas comes across in terms of like whether or not we're naming God, and the name of God is distinguishable from him. There would be univocity, which is like Scotus's position, and then equivocity, the name for a thing has nothing to do with the properties that it modifies. I told you guys would want to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aquinas is right in the Aristotelian middle. He comes up with a halfway between univocity and equivocity called pros hen equivocity. He renames it analogy. Analogy turns out to be everything for the Thomistic metaphysics, but it also enables him to describe being and God and other things that people didn't think you could do before. So,
Okay.
So it's good. It helps him to be correct.
Okay, I'll let other people talk now.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
If anyone else wants to talk.
Just
if
unmute
not,
yourself if you have questions.
Yeah.
What content do you guys like to listen to? What's do you guys do internet, YouTube shows?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I'm more of a I'm more in the politics kind of spectrum of things, but I definitely, Catholicism influences it, 100% all the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I personally look at more of, political conservatism.
Yeah.
And then Catholicism within that. In all of my speakers, all the speakers I listen to all happen to be Catholic. So
who do you like? Who do you like to listen to?
Dr. Marshall brings in politics every once in a while.
Does he?
So not all the time, but
what does he talk about with politics?
Sometimes he just talks about Trump, but not all the time. That's not very often.
To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of.
To that's cool. It's just
actually, we do like it. Like it when people teach Latin here. We've had the longest running argument in history on this chat about whether we do all of our nightly prayers in Latin. We shouldn't. I mean, we should do some of them in Latin occasionally, but if he's teaching the Latin, I'm not going to complain at all.
What do you mean? No, I mean, Latin's it's a cool liturgical language. I prefer the liturgy in Latin, but what do you mean when you say you should do some of your prayers in Latin? You don't. You never should do any of your prayers in Latin. You do prayers in English because it's easiest,
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's kind
of
what
just a trend thing. That's not.
Yeah,
that's not real. Like, look, I was going to Latin Mass when Dr. Marshall was still an Anglican priest, like back in 2006. So I've loved Latin Mass ever since I realized that the Catholic faith was the one true faith. But literally 2006 is when my wife and I were into it. But the prayer is always like it's just you don't get any extra graces by saying the Our Father in Latin. So
I think you have to question your motives behind it, because it's like, if you truly get something out of it by praying in Latin, then yeah, sure, go ahead. But I can speak for myself. Like, it's a whole different thing having a mass in Latin because it's beautiful and historical versus like my nightly prayers, which are way more personal and like I would not get anything out of praying it in Latin versus English at all.
Agreed. Like loving the mass, like you probably put it better than I'm about to, but loving the mass in Latin is beautiful, historical. Some things don't transliterate perfectly to English, as you well know. I mean, go through your Loeb classics, whether it's a Greek text or a Roman text, a Latin text. Some words just don't transliterate very nicely, Ousia in Aristotle, it's substance. It makes it really hard to study Aristotle in English. And the same thing with the Mass. But the Mass is beautiful, as we all know in Latin, blah, blah, blah. We've all had that drilled into our brains. And it's true. But the point is, your prayer, it's becoming a bad LARP. Like your prayer, your prayer is best in your language because you think it. Like my brother Dave was a headmaster for a school, and all these LARPy trads, they just do Latin for the same stupid reason that J2P2 bots just say, oh, the vernacular is beautiful for the Novus Ordo, just because they've had it drilled into their heads. Now there's this army of brainless trad bots that just say it because they heard it. It's better. It's literally do your prayers and whatever's most comfortable for you.
I think Latin is cool if you actually know what you're saying. Just because I think it's just cool. in general for prayer. If I don't think it's like better, I just think it's cool just because it's the language connected to the church until the end of time. So I think it's cool for prayers. But you're right, you do have to know what you're saying. There are lots of LARPers on the internet just going, oh yeah, Latin, Latin, Latin. I have no idea what they're talking about.
Right, that's the new thing.
Like,
Sorry.
how do you
Someone
have
has
add
to-
on to that, Will. It's like
and like faster Wi-Fi service in Latin?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the
Someone-
terms don't even translate. Sorry, someone was saying something.
no, you're
Sorry.
good. You're good. Okay, it's
Someone
okay.
needs
Nah,
to
yeah.
force Jakob to watch this.
I know. Yeah, it's just like Mr. Gordon and Will. It's the biggest LARP in my opinion. I mean, most of these kids don't have no idea what they're saying. You know, I mean that totally goes against Christ's teaching. You know, if you don't know, you're not praying. You're not praying if you don't know what you're saying. You're just saying false words. And
Well,
it's
there's
like,
graces that come through completing any even memorized prayer. So you don't want to go the other way. But it is that anyone that's like, you know, doesn't have brain damage or whatever, like even if they don't understand the main parts of prayer, my littlest kids, as soon as they memorize the Our Father, Our Hail Mary in English, they're kind of just going through some of the more elegant expressions in the middle of the Our Father. And they don't know exactly what it means, but you grow and you mature. There is graces from them completing the prayer when we do it at night. But like, yeah, it's much deeper and it becomes more personal. The Protestants always ask why. It becomes more personal, even the memorized prayer, when you understand it more. And there's no one, no matter how many years of Latin you've studied, that is as good as they are in their home language. So prayer in Latin is the ultimate LARP, if you ask me. I mean, it's just,
I agree.
and many of these, when Dave was this headmaster for this joint homeschool venture, they were in class like half the week. All the kids that had quote unquote studied Latin, it was like all of them. He's like, they don't know any Latin. Like he asked them to conjugate a verb or to descend a noun, decline a noun. And none of them could do it. And they're like, and then the parents are bragging, like talking shit, you know, like, oh, my kids had like 10 years of Latin. It's like, but they don't know any Latin. And this is how a lot of the kids that are talking about prayer is the best in Latin. It's like, I mean, just pray and then, learn enough Latin to do a mass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
Yeah,
agree.
no, I used to be, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Will, my bad.
Okay. I used to be like that. I taught myself the Hail Mary in Latin because I'm like, oh yeah, it's like extra powerful prayer, right? And like I realized, no, it's the same thing. But now I'm stuck in the habit.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's cool.
so anytime I pray the Hail Marys in Latin, just because force a habit.
Yeah, I ain't mocking it. Now that it's habit, it's not actually LARPy of you. It's just good that you realized it's the exact same thing in English and Latin, the prayer.
Yeah.
But I do remember, I mean, again, to conclude this portion of this discussion, it is a slightly different language as the liturgical language. And yes, it only goes back to Trent. It's the Tridentine Latin Mass, but it was a very close version of the Mass for almost 1,000 years.
Yeah, it was actually the first one was celebrated in 300.
Yeah, but then they changed it. They modified it at Trent and all
Yeah.
that. So the exact TLM we celebrate only goes to Trent. It was a very close cousin. But there are better reasons to prefer the Latin Mass to the Novus Ordo Mass, including the language.
Well, because the language isn't the only difference. It's like so many just amazing good things that happen. So wonderful.
Sure.
Yeah, because you can go to Latin Novus Ordo.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the most important thing. Latin Novus Ordo versus English Tridentine Mass. Aside, no Latin. I'd take the English Tridentine Latin Mass, but it is most beautiful in Latin. I'm not saying it's the liturgical language. Prayer isn't, the liturgy is a giant prayer, but all prayer isn't a liturgy in the strict sense of the term. Anyway,
you mentioned
actually,
LARPing, which gets into my question. The second biggest LARP, I would say, Josh said this is the first. Second biggest is monarchy. So this gets into
Monarchy. Oh my
Catholic
God.
Republic. So
These kids are so impractical. I don't know.
Yeah, so my question is, you wrote a book called Catholic Republic, and I completely agree with your thesis about how the American, more neo-scholastic system stems all the way back to Bellarmine, Seville, and Aquinas.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen a lot, maybe it's in the book, I'll have to read it. I haven't seen a lot of social teaching from the Catholicism supporting the I don't like to call it libertarianism, but that's just the word I'm going to use. Like the system of freedom of religion rather than like an integralist system.
Oh, it's all the same thinkers you just mentioned are freedom of religion. Yeah, if you look at it's Leo the 13th loves freedom of religion. Bellarmine and Suarez are absolute 100% on board, way more extreme than Dignitatis Humanae. Dr. Thomas Pink at Oxford makes this point. I've interviewed him before. He makes this point, just quotes Bellarmine and Suarez way out of the water. You know, it's just, and Leo the 13th, who all of these morons, it's not even just a LARPer thing. It's just a illiterate thing. Do you know how to read? Leo the 13th, Bellarmine and Suarez all are robustly for freedom of religion, as is the whole Catholic Church. The whole tradition going back to Pope Leo the First was he had a doctrine called sweetness of preaching. How do we convert the Jews? Forcibly? Christians were forcing them, and he's like, no, through sweetness of preaching. It goes hand in hand with the idea that Catholicism has always squashed and rejected voluntarism. We never have converted by the sword. Anytime trad LARPers in the 500 ADs started forcing Jews, and then in the 600 ADs, some Muslims to convert at the tip of a sword, the popes were always like, no, we don't do that. We believe in free will. We are the liberty religion. We got to convert them through sweetness of preaching. So that's the first Leo. Leo the 13th loved it. Suarez, Bellarmine. There's no argument. And as for the regime, this goes, I'm talking Plato, Aristotle, Cicero, the whole natural law tradition, Augustine, Aquinas, Suarez, Bellarmine. Who did you mention? You mentioned another one of the Salamanca guys. Seville. And Juan de Mariana. And then eventually, he's not a very good Catholic, but he did reconvert in his deathbed. And he was very classically trained, of course, the Baron de Montesquieu. Spent his age 11 through 22 at this school called Julilly in France. He was classically trained in Aristotelianism. And the system is that. They all say there's three good regimes. And they just all agree. There's monarchy, which works out the least often. When it works out, it's the best. Now, like all of those thinkers I just said are in agreement on this. Three good regimes. Monarchy is the best when it's good, but it's only good about 1 in 10 times. Mm-hmm. Then there's an aristocracy, which is ruled by the few. And then there's polity or republicanism, good rule by the many. And each of them has a perverted bad regime. But when they go corrupt, you know, monarchy becomes tyranny, aristocracy becomes oligarchy, republic or polity becomes democracy.
What we're seeing today.
Yeah, what we're seeing today. We're right. But what we're seeing today, the trad LARPers, again, the illiterates, I mean, that don't know how to read, they all say that it was necessary, the fact that we have a democracy, which is a wicked form of government, necessarily arises every time. That's just not right. A res publica, a republic, a polity. If you do things the right way, it won't descend into a democracy. I show that. But it's, as a matter of fact, Thomas Aquinas says the most practical regime probably every secular form of government should do is a mixture of the three, which the Baron de Montesquieu and Pope Leo the 13th said America had, right? Absolutely. The three forms, you get a shadow of the monarchy in the executive branch, you get a shadow of the aristocracy in the judicial branch, you get a shadow of the polity in the legislative branch. And then we have two layers of government, you know, national and federal government, state and national. And you have those three branches flipped like that. So Leo the 13th loved America, wrote effusively on it. Love for America is not the same thing as what all the illiterates on the internet think is Americanism, also a Leo the 13th doctrine. That's just hard separation of church and state, which is obviously bad. But we didn't have hard separation of church and state in America until 1946, when they reversed the meaning of the First Amendment in a case called Everson versus Board of Education. But the point is, as the Constitution was ratified in 1788, and we got the Bill of Rights in 1791, literally that First Amendment meant the opposite thing. Soft integralism with soft separation of church and state. The Freemasons on the court are the ones that knew they had to reverse that and did reverse it when they had 7 of 9 Freemasons on the bench in the 1940s after World War II. Things got really secular. They got as many as 8 out of 9 Freemasons in the Warren Court in the 1950s, the next decade. But Everson was decided by 7 Freemasons. And you read the decision and they say, we're reversing the meaning of the First Amendment, which essentially let each state have its own established mini integralism. That was the original United States. And that's all I defend, is really the original Constitution. It's been perverted since then, but it was not perverted at the outset. Or as Christopher Ferrara says, it was not set, that it wasn't designed this way. It didn't have to be that way. Liberty is the only way.
Oh, did Chris Ferrara make that point too, or made the opposite of that point?
In the book, Liberty, the God that failed.
The God that failed.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's not. If you think there are other people throughout history that thought liberty was a God that failed. Martin Luther, John Calvin, they literally they tried to make what Protestantism is a voluntarist, which means will alone, no liberty or liberty rejecting form of Christianity, which is fake, straight up fake Christianity. We literally are the one religion that affirms human liberty, because the 2 parts of the soul, the will and the intellect, render us different from every one of the other creatures aside from the angels, different from every one of the other material creatures of, substantial substratum or whatever.
Right. I could talk to you about liberty for hours, but I want to let everyone else have a chance to speak. So does anyone else have questions?
I don't have a question, but I'm at work right now, and I just snuck away so I can say hi to everyone.
Hello,
So, hello.
David.
And
How are you?
Tim, I'm
Hey,
a big
David.
fan, so I just wanted to say that.
Nice to meet you, man. Yeah,
Nice to
meet you.
thanks for sneaking away. What do you call work? Where do you work?
I'm at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, so I'm outside right now because I wanted to catch a little bit of it.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Do you get any nice like perquisites from working there? You get some free wings or what?
We have like when we work, we get 50% off, and then when we don't work, we get like 20%, I believe, or something like that.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah,
check
but
writes
I'm
itself.
actually, it's my last day though.
Oh,
I got
that's no good.
Yeah, but it's because I got a new job, so it was on my.
Oh, good. Good. Wait, does that new job give you 50% off wings too, even if it's not wing related?
Well, not wings, but on food. Yeah, it's another restaurant job.
Okay, cool. Where do you live?
I live in Youngstown, Ohio.
Oh, cool. Baseball Hall of Fame, right?
Yeah, that's in Canton, I believe.
Oh, that's in
Not
Canton.
not far.
Yeah.
That's Cooperstown baseball.
Cooperstown. Oh, it's Cooperstown.
Canton. Yeah, you're right about that, David. That Canton is football.
Yeah, it has the Football Hall of Fame and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, but yeah, just wanted to say hey, big fan.
Awesome.
I used to watch you with Taylor Marshall,
You
but
still watch Marshall? We were talking.
sometimes, yeah.
Marshall will be on next week, Tim.
What's that?
Marshall's
Wait,
going
is
to
he
be on
actually
next
being
week.
on next week?
Wait,
Uh,
we
I'm sorry,
got
I'm
him?
here, by the way.
I think so. You're good, Josh. And yeah, I
Yeah,
think,
my
I
bad.
think pretty sure, yeah.
Yoink.
Oh wait, Taylor Marshall's gonna go on Zoom with us?
Yeah, next week.
Dope.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's
I
why I had
did
to
this
sneak
one.
away from work because you keep having these
Still
cool
kinda
Zooms and I
like
can't
working.
make them.
I kind of feel bad for Mr. Gordon now. We're talking about having faculty as arch nemesis on now next week.
Move away from that.
Why do you
Yeah,
feel bad
just-
for me?
Yeah, because didn't you guys have like a big falling out?
I mean, not really, but do you feel bad for Marshall? He had a falling out with me. Why would you feel bad with someone because they had a falling? No, I mean, just not really a big falling out. It's just literally he views, like, if you have a neighbor and they started a podcast, and let's say that podcast got 10 subscribers, right?
Yeah.
Marshall would hate them and he'd view them as a mega competitor, even though they only have 10 followers. Like that's just how he rolls. Like,
Yeah.
whereas like everybody else, it's kind of like share the sandbox, just be cool.
Yeah.
It's not people, their time is fungible. And most people, because so much crazy stuff is happening in the church and the world right now, that people are listening to extra content on the internet. That's a fact of life. And then you add in, COVID hoax 19 or whatever, and people have lots of time to listen to lots of content. and who really cares anyway? You know, just make your content and hope. Everyone hopes
Right.
it does well and gets listened to, but I mean, it's no one really worries about it, and that's why most of the guys you listen to, Pat Coffin or Church Militant, or the church at some point, hopefully, will go back to nothing but the Latin Mass. That was always that's kind of the thin red line running through everything I ever said. And then it was kind of like people took the ball and ran with it, and it got kind of idiotic in the trad world, and then it went towards all this SSPX stuff being normalized and in a direction I never ever would have endorsed. And like if you look at Marshall's channel, he had fewer subscribers than I have now. I've only had a YouTube channel for less than a year, right? He had that for years. Then I came on, and boom, he got a spike. He takes off, and it's because he and I both are talking about interesting stuff and interesting bad stuff was happening in the church, and human nature in its fallen state is such that stuff is interesting, and it's not wrong to talk about. You know, the Vigano stuff was happening. Summer of Shame was fresh. So, and then I was just talking how I talk. Like clearly the TLM is superior to even the most faithful Novus Ordo, but I wasn't saying the Novus Ordo isn't valid. It 100% is, and it's 100% good, and you get graces from it. But hopefully at some later time, it'll be valid until this time, and maybe it'll never come. Hopefully the church just goes back to the TLM, because it's a discipline. You can change it. There's nothing wrong with changing it. The church didn't do anything wrong by changing it. It's clearly an inferior product. It's, as Marshall and I once said, new Coke versus old Coke. So we do people, I've interviewed two heavyweight champ boxers. I've interviewed comedians. I interview Catholic people. I've interviewed, I guess with Marshall, I interviewed NFL players. I interviewed Mike Ditka. It was just, me and Dave do a totally different thing. We have people on that like to joke. Every show is not just, broken record stuff. So, but then when we do a show, some of what I'm trying to do on Rules for Retrogrades is to try to correct some of the sort of overcompensation that was happening in the direct, because that's what it is. It's overcompensation in the direction of traditionalism. And I'm like, no. So go watch the Thomas Pink show. The kind of the expert on Dignitatis Humanae. We were talking about this earlier. 100% the medievals were more extreme than pro-religious liberty than Dignitatis Humanae. And Thomas Pink is an Oxford professor, super guy, traditional minded, conservative, but he's just like, yeah, here are all these passages in Bellarmine, Suarez, the Salamanca guys that are like totally pro-religious liberty that did not give us Pope Francis and Pachamama. I like Archbishop Vigano. I have a sticker on my car. I have a mug I drink out of. He's a hero. He's one of my favorite prelates, but he's just wrong when he says that the Dignitatis Humanae gave us Pachamama. It's dead wrong. You can go to it. There's a solid line of religious liberty in the whole history of the church. Okay. So that's, I think as a matter of facts now, fraternal correction, all that, I think there are elements. Vigano's one of them. Marshall, on the other hand, he's gone too far on the other end. It's jumping the shark to say that the religious liberty in Dignitatis Humanae is wrong. It's not.
Josh, you can just unmute yourself. Ask your question.
Yeah. Okay. So if I had to go into some sort of strange identitarian Catholic title to give myself, I guess I would have to give myself like a moderate traditionalist or something like that. But really, I just Catholic.
Right.
I'm Catholic with the traditionally minded. But even though I'm more considered like moderate, I'm not like a rad trad or anything like that. But even still, I have a large amount of respect for like Archbishop Lefebvre or the SSPX. So do you think that the normalization of them is bad, or do you like them and you would prefer they come back into full communion, but still you're just skeptical? What is your exact personal opinion on it?
I mean, just the church's view
I'm just curious.
of them. I don't have a personal view on breakaway sex from the church, but what we can say that's objectively true is Lefebvre did too little at the council and too much after it, because he was self-conscious or something. If I don't know, but he did too little. Like, look, it doesn't matter, because I'm a constitutional scholar. I have a JD also. So one of my very favorite thing to study in law school is the 1787 and 1788 American federal constitutional ratifying convention in Philadelphia in 87, and then the individual state ones in 88. Summer of 87, then the state ones, the 13 states did their ratifying conventions in 88. What do you do at a constitutional convention, which is all Vatican II was, right? Ratifying or not ratifying the 5 main sacred constitutions. You set up a little corner and you caucus for, hey, this is why this document's good. Like the Federalists were caucusing for why this new constitution is better than the Articles of Confederation in America, which is what we were on like during the war for independence. And after the war for independence, they're like, let's go to this new constitution that's more central power. And the anti-federalists were like, no, this is bad. This is giving up too much. Most of my heroes were anti-federalists. They thought the Constitution was giving up too much power. But the point is, you caucus, you make a case, you set up shop, and you're like, hey, everyone, you literally just call people over at a convention. You're like, let me make you an argument, right? I'm going to tell you why the Constitution is bad or good. What Lefebvre did that was really, that anyone ought to be able, to the extent that rad trads hate the 4 or 5 sacred constitutions of Vatican II, they ought to be really mad at Lefebvre because he signed every one of them. And then he lied about it later.
Yeah.
And he lied about it. I mean, it's really not honorable. I mean, these are just historical facts. This isn't even what do I think about whatever, right? This is just, he signed all of them. It's staggering. Bishop Barron, of all people, pointed this out. Bishop Barron's like, they were signed like 1,000 to 5. And where it's like, when I go to the Virginia ratifying convention of the U.S. Constitution from June 3rd to June 24th of 1788, which I studied in law school for a whole summer, it was like the vote at Virginia among the Virginia delegates were 89 to 80 ratifying. That's like close. It was like a hair, right? So the anti-federalists, the anti-constitutional guys, they stood up and they're like, no, we're not going to sign, led by like George Mason and Patrick Henry. You probably remember from the 1770s. These guys were like badasses. They're like, no, we're not going to sign it. Here's why. This is bad. Boom, boom, boom. But like, there are like 5 guys that didn't sign the Constitution. That's your moment, Lefebvre, to shine. Make an oral argument. This is what a ratifying convention is. And say, no, don't do this. I wouldn't have signed a couple of the constitutions, the sacred constitutions. There's some real ambiguities with some of them. Now they don't have doctrinal error. That's too much. So Lefebvre, it's like he knew he chickened out. So he went overboard later and it got him excommunicated. Like excommunicated means you're going to hell. And whether or not it gets lifted in time, who knows? But it's like, dude, you should have done more when you could. It's like when a bully's picking on the girl you have a crush on. It's like, it's a dream come true. This is a gift wrap package, a way to roll through. Like, act, bro. And he didn't do it. So you can't argue. So any of these trads that get on a soapbox about Lefebvre, it's like, dude, just say you should have done the right thing. You should have. I would have been making a bigger stink than Lefebvre, and the Lefebvrians are the ones calling me like a cuck just for saying like, yes, Vatican II is part of the ordinary magisterium. That brings us to the other part. It's like, we don't just have to give assent to infallible dogma. And another thing rad trads either lie about or they're just mistaken about is they say there are 21 ecumenical councils. Vatican II is the 21st. They say 20 out of the 21 were dogmatic councils. Only 1 was pastoral. Isn't that funny? And I used to say this because I just took them at their word. They're not. It's like the 4th or 5th pastoral council out of those 21. They're not. That's just a straight up lie, straight up calumny. There are other pastoral councils. So Vatican II doesn't stick out as much as they say. We can have councils where, and the Pope can decree it also. If the Pope says tomorrow, every religious has to wear the tonsure, you got to go shave your hair into that shitty haircut. Like, you got to go.
That haircut's cool. That haircut is cool.
It's dope, bro, to the LARPers, right? No, but I mean, my point is this. If Lefebvre or the Blefebvre says, some guy that's still living, Blefebvre says tomorrow, like, well, I'm not going to shave my hair in the haircut because, you know, I don't think that's so traditional for whatever reason, and it's not infallible. That's a breakaway sect. Like, that's it. Right. Even though it's not infallible, because the next pope can change it back and say, you don't have to do this. It has nothing to do with infallibility. That's extraordinary magisterium. The Vatican II documents, the reason we have to give them religious submission, even though I do suspect, I'm writing a book on them. I suspect a lot of the people at Vatican II were really bad guys trying to use weaponized ambiguity. And they used it, and they knew what they're going to do, and they did it. All the same stuff I said on Marshall for all that time. Like Skilbeck said, they knew what they're going to do with them. That doesn't mean they hardwired error in. It means they hardwired ambiguity in.
So they could come back later and change, yeah.
Yes, they could come back later, and it's not even heterodoxy, it's heteropraxy. They could use. That's not the same thing as having an error. That's different. They're two different things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Lefebvre just went off the rails in 1788. But look, you don't get excommunicated. JP2, well, I'm not like a JP2 fanboy. I'm not a big fan. He created the false notion of Christian feminism. He did a lot that I really think was bad. But the fact is, with Lefebvre, he was way more patient and really tried to keep him from going off the rail, from jumping the shark. And he didn't. You know, and same thing with Ratzinger. Cardinal Ratzinger is the CDF. They were really patient with him, and he was really, really contumacious. That's Protestant, man. And so was Martin Luther. So it's not about liking Vatican II or not liking Vatican II. It's more about, are you Catholic? And that's the thing. That identitarianism stuff is BS. It's just, what are you, a trad? Or are you J2? It's so gay. It's like, dude, I'm just Catholic. I'm very traditional minded. I do hope that I'm not the Pope, so I don't get to do it monolithically. But I do hope that we do just eradicate the Novus Ordo at some later time, not because it's fake or any of that. That's all just breakaway schismatic nonsense. It's real. It's just not as good. New Coke was a real thing. It's just not as good as old Coke. And Coca-Cola went back to old Coke. I hope we do that at like Vatican III.
Or go FSSP.
Yeah. Bye, Gracie.
Or go to FSSP. Yeah.
Yeah, I could ask a million questions on SSPX because there's a lot of stuff that went into it, but I'm not going to do that. So I'll just ask a question about Vatican II though, because there's been a little thing about Brandmuller versus Schneider versus Vigano. So Brandmuller is obviously strict hermeneutic of continuity. We just interpret them. All later, and we just interpret them all in hermeneutic of continuity interpretation later, and then just forget everything ever happened. And then the Schneider take, which is hermeneutic of continuity, does work, but because they can be interpreted badly later on, why don't we just get rid of some of the bad statements just for bad interpretation? And there's obviously the Vigano take, which is throw them out altogether. So I was wondering which one of those views do you hold closest to, and if you have a different one, then what is that?
Well, I think the well, no, I shouldn't say I think. That's false moderateness. The understanding of 99% of the people I've ever, especially on the internet, I've ever heard talk about the hermeneutic of continuity is a wild misunderstanding. Go watch. It's one of the last shows I did with Marshall. We were friendly debating the hermeneutic of continuity, and he suffered from the same misunderstanding of the hermeneutic of continuity that 99% of the people are.
Yeah, I just recently realized that.
Yeah, a hermeneutic is an interpretive aid. So the hermeneutic of continuity just means that it doesn't mean that we do anything, that we have to go back and ignore things or whatever. It just means that we assume that those weaponized ambiguity spots it's really only one or two of the documents. It's not four, the way Lefebvre thought. He was just so wrong about Dignitatis Humanae. He didn't understand really Dignitatis Humanae. It was partly a French thing. But Dignitatis Humanae doesn't even have ambiguous spots. It's just straight up medieval philosophy. It's straight up Bellarminianism. And it's very Leonine. But the two really parts of Lumen Gentium, parts of Gaudium et Spes have some weird stuff that's ambiguous. And all the hermeneutic of continuity is is it's an interpretive aid that we impose on the document, where we're like, this is ambiguous. You have to either accept that it might sound like rupture, in which case the church is broken and done, right? Or continuity, and we just say, well, whatever. I know a lot of trads don't like or watch sports, but remember, when you do like a review or replay on the field on football or basketball, the ruling on the field tradition stands unless there's enough evidence to overrule it, right? So if they're like, if a receiver caught a ball and it looks like a trapped ball in football, which is where you catch it against the ground, if the call on the field before they go to review, if it's a fair catch. If it stands, it will stand if then when they go to review, they don't have a good angle and they can't tell. The presumption, the hermeneutic is continuity. And that's all they're saying. So what Skilabix and all those radical, probably homosexualist atheists that were at the council, they really were doing bad stuff, but they knew they couldn't write outright error into the document because then it would just be weeded out. But so they wrote vague stuff, and hermeneutic of continuity just means if we don't know what it is, we line it out the same way the Privileges and Immunities Clause essentially got lined out of the 14th Amendment during the slaughterhouse cases of the 1890s. You just kind of look past that line. You're like, it doesn't mean anything, so tie goes to the runner, or there's not enough evidence on the field. So what document are you talking about? What line of what document are you talking about? Well, you got to get specific, and none of these trads ever know what.
I'm talking about the Hindu Buddhist part of Nostra. All it says is, and it gets misquoted by trads. I mean, they literally misquoted on purpose to make it sound bad. Or at least one guy does on the internet. And since none of these people are readers, they don't go read the document. One guy does on the internet, and everyone just thinks that's what it is. That famous line about Buddhism just says the Buddhists think they have the one true faith. In paragraph 2 of Lumen Gentium, it says there is only one way to heaven. It's the unique path to heaven. It's the Roman Catholic Church. It's so strong. Yeah,
Lumen Gentium 14 says it really strong. Nostra Aetate only says they think they have it. I think it was actually Darcy Marshall.
It says teaches men. So I think that you're right. I think you're right that for hermeneutic, it absolutely can be read like teach, meaning like they think they do. But yeah, I think that liberal, that like you said, it's really easy to interpret wrongly. If that's the word.
Well, yeah, but I mean denotation. That's not even one of the areas that's vague or maybe wrong. That's just not right. They just misquote. Another thing, Dr. Marshall Taylor misquoted was from Lumen Gentium. Says that Muslims profess the one true faith. It just in the document it just says Muslims profess belief in one God. All it says is literally Muslims worship one God, which is
it was quite funny because in his interview he literally quoted himself on Catholic Answers and was like, yeah, I used to believe that they just believed that they professed the faith of Abraham, and I'm like, dude, that's what everyone's been saying, and that's in the hermeneutic of continuity.
Right.
So
I mean, that's just in the document. That's Lumen Gentium.
Yeah, and then also the other thing about that is it's right in a clause about invincible ignorance. So it's saying if Muslims are invincibly ignorant, they don't even have to be ignorant of their own God because they would be worshiping the same one anyways.
Right. But in the Pius X Catechism, the big hero. I love Pius X too. Obviously, as a traditional minded guy, but Pius X had a catechism in the first part of the 20th century that didn't just say Muslims worship one God, which is all Lumen Gentium and Nostra Aetate say. Muslims worship one God, which is a fact. Pius X's catechism actually says Muslims worship the one true God, which is what Marshall said Lumen Gentium says. It's really cringy.
Right.
It's really
I don't think Marshall was denying that. I think he was just saying they adore with us. And the thing is, he added.
I just went through it. He added the word true. It doesn't say true.
Yeah.
Then later he was like, well, I mean, isn't that what you infer? And it's like, no, that's not what you don't infer anything. You added that and you told 100,000 people that the document said this. That's a really serious thing. You
Right.
can't
So
make up that a document says.
I don't have many problems with Lumen Gentium. It's mainly just Nostra, Unitatis, and yeah, that's mainly just Nostra and Unitatis are the big two that not erroneous, not problems with. That's not the right word, but like I think that those are the ones that can be interpreted in hermeneutic, like you said. We just the Brand-Mueller interpretation. We just go along with it, or in the rupture interpretation, like you said, it's weaponized ambiguity. So it's just a matter of strategy. I think that we disagree on. Schneider's saying, "How about we never let this happen again?" And yours is just like, "Let's just assume." And I think both are really good takes, and both are we need some aspect of.
I think Schneider's actually more moderate than Vigano, as you point out, but Brand-Mueller's just right. I mean, Brand-Mueller and Burke both have this strong view on Vatican II. They're not saying that the people there were good. I think everyone agrees. They're really, a lot of the radicals were running the council. But when I talk about Vatican II, I'm talking about the documents. I've been studying them for the first time, not just using trad talking points. The more I look at them to write this book for TAN that I'm supposed to be writing like right now, the more I'm like, holy cow, there really is. There's even less vagary than I'm writing. I mean, literally, take it from me. I got contracted to write this book, and there are less vague spots than I thought, let alone there's no error. But there are even fewer vague spots than I thought. And I'm like, I'd like to find some vague spots because I have to write this book.
Yeah, the main ones are Unitatis and what was I gonna say? Unitatis and Nostra for me.
What's vague? I still don't even know what's vague there.
Oh, and Unitatis and Nostra. So for Nostra, it's the teach. Does teach mean like they want to, or does teach mean they can? Those are two interpretations that both look reasonable at first glance, but like you said,
Buddhism, as a matter of fact, teaches that they have this way of achieving whatever nirvana in life.
Yeah, it says teaches men. So I think both interpretations work for that. And then for Unitatis, it says in cases of invincible ignorance, then separated churches can give grace to their sacraments. So the question is, what does that mean? Does that mean Protestants or Orthodox? It works for Orthodox because if someone's invincibly ignorant of the Pope, then it works. But the thing is, what does separated churches mean? Is that Protestants and Orthodox? Is it one of the two? So again, it's both interpretations work. Yours would come out in the end if we use your strategy. And then there's one more in Unitatis. What was it? What was it?
While you're thinking of that, the other thing the trads do is they say that Paul VI said, you can just take these sacred constitutions or you cannot listen to them. He didn't say that at all. He at the end of, I forget which document it is, it says it's very clear that it's authentic magisterium, which means ordinary magisterium. It's not a dogmatic council because it's not dogmatically defining any heresy out of the faith. But it's by its nature a pastoral council. There were pastoral councils before that, which I've learned. But it says it's authentic magisterium. This means you must accept the teachings of Vatican II. Whether you like them or not, whether you're traditional minded or not, you have to accept the teachings of Vatican II. And trads always say, oh, you don't really have to accept them because it's pastoral. Then just see my analogy about wearing the tonsure. It's like, it's a question of obedience. It's not a question of dogma. No one said anything dogmatic, but you have to accept Vatican II. It's not up to you if you're Catholic.
Right. What was I going to say? Yeah. So for it's Vatican II, Paul wanted it to be not infallibly doctrinal, not dogmatic, but just doctrinal. And that's still free from error. So I think even if there were error in it, there's like a litmus test you do for doctrine. And if doctrine denies the doctrine above it, then it becomes prudential. So even if there were error in it, then it wouldn't matter that much like trads say it would. It wouldn't be like some false thing. Even if there were error in it, because it wouldn't pass the litmus test.
Sure, but no one can point out one error without adding fake words.
I don't.
Things like that.
I don't believe error.
And think about it this way, man. They're the ones trying to Vigano. I was really disappointed to see that he said that the Vatican II document led to Pachamama. It's like, no. There is as much as you want to say, oh, Vatican II produced Francis. Francis is different. Francis is a distinction of kind, different. He's not just a distinction of degree. Here's the proof. There are 4 dubia cardinals. Remember them? 2 of them died. The 2 remaining ones, Burke and Brandmuller, or wait, is Brandmuller? Yeah, Brandmuller still alive. They both say very strongly, the Vatican II documents all check out, right? Which is why you never hear like megatrads citing them anymore, because both Burke and Brandmuller, these guys went against the Peter, the living pontiff. That's how much they put their necks on the line with the dubia. It's happened before, but it hasn't happened that many times. So they have no reason to water it down. If there was some error, some secret error with Vatican II that could, for some reason, the trads can never enumerate without making up words. If there was some secret error with it, they would put their neck on the line for that too. They're willing to go against the present Pope. How scary is it to go against past documents from 50 years ago? Look at Lefebvre. He did it even though he didn't stand against it at the time when he actually had the chance to at the council. So they would do that. But the 2 remaining dubia cardinals, you guys all need to think about that. They all say the documents are error-free. So that's really strong. People have to question, why would they be willing to go against a scary, tyrannical type Pope, a true tyrannical type Pope, dictator Pope, and stand up and question him with these formal dubia, but not just say, oh yeah, the trads are right about the Vatican II documents, even though no one can say how they're wrong.
Right. We could talk about this for hours, but does anyone else have any questions before we close?
Yeah, we've been going for about an hour. We don't want to be too long.
All right.
Okay, this is a more of a okay. Okay,
No,
this is more of a political question. But what were your if you watched it? What were your thoughts on the RNC? Did you like or did you dislike, or what was your opinion on that?
The nun was cool. Most of Melania Trump's talk was cool. Everyone made Nick Sandmann sound like, he blew the house down. I was kind of like, he's still. I mean, it was cool, I guess. But I was really hoping he would be like mad and psyched up, Sandmann. Because I'm psyched up for him. I want to support him. Everyone said, oh, that was a couple years ago, that was the timid young high school guy that was just smiling. Now he's taking the gloves off. So I had so many people tweeting me and texting me before I saw it. I was like, yeah, this is going to be like, watching Fury Wilder Part 2 or whatever. And then when I went, it wasn't Fury Wilder Part 2 at all. I was just like, oh, okay. I mean, I guess he's a young guy. It's hard to, you'll learn how to be rhetorically really effective as you go. But I was really ready to see Nick Sandmann just coming out spitting thunder. And I mean, he did fine. I'm not trying to critique him. The nun was really cool. Mm-hmm. It was cool that, Lou Holtz was tweeting stuff in support of Trump. I thought it was good. It wasn't the DNC convention, so there's that.
No, yeah. Yeah, personally, the production of it was like, just the production, no words, but just the production, like, killed the DNC. But yeah, I mean, even with the words, I feel like Trump's speech was really long. But
it was.
Yeah. I kind of wish that Trump had more of his, personal instinct, not the Jared Kushner weigh in on him.
Right. Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I do too. I mean, a lot of people are surmising exactly like you just did. It's like,
you
need to trust the instincts that got you elected in 2016.
Exactly. I didn't really like the pandering that they did during the RNC a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, sometimes I felt like they weren't even like, I felt like the RNC, this like some of them, with a lot of the speakers they brought on were the same people. Like, it's like these people aren't your constituents. It's like, these people are not going to vote for you.
Right.
I don't know. It's
agreed.
Like, yeah.
Just know there's a big civil war. I mean, I'm in with a lot of the insiders in Trump, and a lot of these people are saying there's civil war even in the campaign, which it's kind of like, okay, yeah, there's been the takeover somewhat more toward traditional Republican business as usual kind of neocon politics. And it's like, okay, just I don't know, that's going to kill you, man, because don't start sounding like Mitt Romney or you're going to get voted for like Mitt Romney. But he still has an enthusiastic enough base.
Yeah.
And enthusiasm gaps win elections, even if the numbers he's coming up polling badly, a little behind Biden. At the ballot box electorally, they always say an enthusiasm gap is what really matters. Unless you're getting blown out, you know, an enthusiasm gap isn't going to fix a 10-point margin. But if it's anywhere close to margin of error, which it is now, enthusiasm gap will carry the day. So he has an enthusiastic enough base to be okay, I think, but it's closer than I'd like it to be. And I think if he just kept the gloves off and keep being savage on Twitter, keep saying funny, hilarious stuff, you know, that Raymond Arroyo interviewed him. He told me behind the scenes, he's just hilarious. Just be yourself, man. That's what won you.
That's what I agree with you. I wish like that the Turning Point USA stuff would kind of go what was I going to say? Oh, like the socialism is a threat. Like, I think it's a distant threat, you know? I don't think.
No, I don't agree with you there. Socialism.
Okay, no. Okay, I do think socialism is a threat, but I don't think it's the biggest threat, because I feel like, I mean, like they barely talked about our cities burning down at all. Like I was kind of like hoping for them. They're saying it in the name of socialism, so you're right there. That's true.
Yeah. That's all it is, dude. No. I mean, I'm not. Yeah, it's not formally wrong because it's not just the economics. But I was just reading Michael Knowles' forward for the new TAN book, the new Paul Kengor TAN book, and it's like, yeah, we want to avoid socialist economics. That's a big deal. But socialism is this whole. More importantly. Mm-hmm. Economics are important too. We got to avoid socialism there, but culturally, religiously, that's what BLM is. It's an attack on Christianity. It's an attack.
Exactly.
It's an attack on Christianity.
I recommend Trent Horn's book on socialism to everyone.
It's good.
Well, I've got to go. But thank you, Mr. Gordon, for your time. It was really awesome talking to you.
Yeah, good talking to you guys.
Thank you. I'll see you guys later.
Live streamed or what?
No, it's just recorded.
It was recorded. It'll be put up in a day or two.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah.
So you said Michael Knowles, right? So do you consider Michael Knowles more of a neocon or more of a paleocon or someone kind of in the middle?
Neocon, you meaning with what the neocons brought to the Republican Party, you know, like William Crystal in the mid 70s?
Yeah. I guess more.
You're just talking Israel.
I guess.
Talking Israel on the border.
He's talking about Israel and immigration.
Oh yeah, Israel. Yeah. Neocons don't have much of it. See, neoconservatism, paleoconservatism have been hijacked terms. The neocons were a group of, William Crystal's father, Irving Kristol, and a bunch of the neocons who came to the Republican Party after the 72 election, 74 election. They immigrated. What they wanted to bring is Keynesian economics, which a lot of people that decry neoconservatism on the right basically are Keynesianisms, right? You know, deficit spending, entitlements, things like that. So people have to watch it with that term because neoconservatism is the furthest thing economically from libertarianism, and that gets misused a lot. They did come because of Israel. That's accurate, because the Democrat Party was changing on Israel. But Knowles is closer to me. I'm basically a border hawk. I don't know if how publicly he would say that, or I don't know if you can't say he's a border hawk because he doesn't say it publicly, but he's very sympathetic to people like me who are border hawks. Yeah. We need, I don't know if we need, we just need to really stanch the flow, and we don't need lots of immigrants at this point in history. That's just a fact. So, and we definitely need to shut off illegal immigration. And then Israel, no one really talks about that. That's like an issue that's even the money's involved, right? In terms of trade equity and things like that, inequity, allegedly. It's talked about at like 10,000 times the volume. I know probably because of Nick Fuentes and certain other people. They talk about it like 10,000 times louder than it even figures into national outlays and things like that as a portion of the budget. So I don't really have a strong view on it, and I don't think he really has a strong view on it one way or the other. But it's
really nice guy.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy. He's a real conservative. I know that he's a real Catholic. We've been to Latin Mass together a couple times.
His wife is too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
I,
Yeah,
I never questioned his intentions. I'm not a groiper, but I like Nick, and I also like Michael. But I know the two of them have kind of a not nice words exchanged between the two of them. So I was just curious, as you being an insider between the two, what your opinion on was between the two's relationship and their views and whatnot. But
I mean, Knowles is a really serious commentator. That's all I'd
Yeah.
say. He doesn't really take pot shots at anyone. You know, I don't think there's any beef between them. Just, you know, Fuentes' whole shtick or whatever is he'll make fun of anyone who's associated with Ben Shapiro. You know, post-ironic reasons. So, I mean, Knowles was kind of just like, whatever, dude. But I mean, he's a serious mind, serious commentator. He's very I mean, he's respectable in his approach.
Yeah.
And he has views that are what I would call anything but neoconservative from private conversation.
Also,
publicly.
Also, I don't know if he's ever talked about being a border hawk or anything, but I know he has, at least on one of the shows when I used to watch him, he described himself as a nationalist openly. So I don't know, that might figure into how you think about that somehow.
Yeah, I mean, somehow nationalists, the nationalism that the Groypers are popularizing. I didn't know he'd said that actually, but he's more with, I guess, what would be the populist conception of things than I am. I mean, I know Fuentes and them like nationalist. I just mean shut down the border when I say national borders. But no, I believe in a Catholic principle called subsidiarity, which is the opposite of nationalism when we're talking about legislation. The legislation laws should be made locally, 100%. And that's anything but a LARP. That's just Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution. So, and I know Michael Knowles believes in subsidiarity. I think most people who call themselves nationalists don't have any conception of how subsidiarity works.
I think what he means by nationalism isn't like some sort of like the national government should do everything, but like when he was talking about it, he was specifically saying that the idea that you can separate patriotism and nationalism, like love of your country, that's like the idea that you can separate these two, and nationalism is just the bad version and patriotism is the good version, is like asinine, and there isn't a actual separation that you can draw there. Like and also I think with the Groypers and most of them, when they say nationalism, it isn't specifically directed at like we want to nationalize like all these industries and like top down everything. I think for them it's mostly like I think it's called oikos, like a love of home, and a wish to stem flows
It's
of
economic populism, which is actually it's really close to Keynesianism, which is the economic system of neoconservatism, which is hilarious. So I love pointing that out to them. I mean, a lot of them just aren't, I mean, they might be smart, high IQ, maybe not. I don't know. I just don't want to like insult everyone with a broad brush, but it's not a reading audience, the Groypers. It's a Twitter audience. The most they write on their day is 144 characters times however messages they write. So these are not people that are studying the issues. Like I said, go do your own research is a good thing to tell people. When Irving Kristol came into the party, he brought Keynesianism to the Republican side. And that's much more closely linked with economic populism and nationalism than libertarianism. Libertarianism is much closer to paleoconservatism than either is to neoconservative. I mean, I know that's different from what you're hearing, but just subsidiarity. There's no right that the national. Thomas Aquinas says it's immoral. The only thing he says that the nation from like the center for the whole national governance should be is the pay for your legislators. They should be able to make laws to pay themselves, to prosecute wars, and then what we would call the police power. But except what we have in America is the police power goes to the states. So really local, states' rights is what I believe in. All the strongest, most moral laws should be at the city and state level. The moral laws should never be happening at the national level. That's always wrong. Always violates subsidiarity. Go read Quadragesimo Anno. Pius XI is very
absolutely. Yep, big fans of that here.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think
anyone else of anything?
Yeah. Do we have anything else? We've been going for an hour and 10 minutes.
Oh,
so.
I just wanted to say,
Yeah.
I found the other thing in Unitatis real quick, and it was the subsist thing. And yeah, I know, it's a matter of secular versus theological definition. I know,
Yeah.
both use that.
Subsist is fishy. No, I mean that's so. I mean, I'm not some shyster, man. I literally am like, yeah, okay. I signed the contract to write this book on the weaponized ambiguity like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And I thought there was way more. That's one where I was like, okay, there's something I can write on.
Right.
There are no errors, and there's even far fewer weaponized ambiguity. I do think the subsistin still comes out textually. It's clean. It's still not an error, but that does seem openly fishy.
Right. It's a difference of theological versus secular definition. All right. If no one else has anything, Tim, will you close us in prayer?
Sure. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. The Father, the Son, Holy Spirit.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks a million. You guys have a good one.
It's good to
Sorry
meet
about
you.
the planning too.
Good to meet you all too. Yeah.
Have an excellent
Good to
It's a
meet
whole
you.
lot of fun.
Yeah, good questions. I enjoyed the questions.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.